All right, welcome everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. I super appreciate you all coming out again today. Tremendous commitment from the community. Day 2. Thank you very much. We're going to try to keep really tight on schedule today. I would like to leave as much time as possible for some follow-up at the end. So we're going to go ahead and proceed. We're going to try to range for around 3 minutes per response, if that's okay. If you need to take a little more, take a little less, we'll work it out. But we'd like to kind of finish up around 4:45, perhaps, to be able to have some follow-up on previous questions. Is that okay?
If I go long, is there electric shock or something?
You didn't get the collar when you came in. Okay, so without any further ado, I'll introduce you to Dr. Robert Kobylski. Kobylski. And I'll give you an opportunity to take a few moments to do an introductory statement, please.
Certainly. First of all, it's with great gratitude that I have an opportunity to present my credentials to you in person. I appreciate you coming out. Interesting weather that you have here in Iowa. If you wait 10 minutes, it seems to change. So, but being from Wisconsin, I'm not too surprised by that. But again, thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm very fortunate to be here today. I've had a life pathway that has provided me with many opportunities, both personally and professionally, and I think it's allowed me to grow as a human being to the point where I feel as though not only do I have the professional acumen and abilities that I believe will help this district grow and mature and move in a direction that would be exciting to you, but I also have a family that's very excited about the thought of joining the Davenport community, and I think that's an important piece to this equation also. So there's a professional component and a personal component. Just quick background piece. I grew up on the north suburban shoreline of Chicago. I'm a Bears fan, Cubs fan, if that matters. To anyone with this, it's been difficult living in Wisconsin as a Bears fan for the last 13 years, so I appreciate the change of pace in that. I'm a graduate of Loyola University of Chicago, majored in economics, and started my career in the private sector. Did an internship at the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago. My thought was to be a banker. However, I took a course in Introduction to Commodity Futures Trading and was bitten by the trading bug. I found the excitement of that particular industry too much to hold me back, and I ended up becoming a commodity trader at the Chicago Board of Trade. I did that for 10 years. After 10 years, I went off the floor for a couple years, and I worked for a firm called Smith Barney Shearson. It was an investment firm. I helped manage institutional accounts, helped hedging their portfolios, as well as analyzing the securities within their portfolios. So I have a very well-rounded financial background. After those 12 years, very productive, allowed me to accommodate many of the needs for my family, both currently as well as in the future, but I felt a hole in my soul, and that soul was a need to fulfill a sense of social justice. As a graduate of Loyola University, you don't go through a Jesuit system without understanding the role of leadership for the purpose of social justice, and that's part of who I am. And I decided to leave the world of finance and become an educator. And not just any educator, I wanted to become an educator in a school system where I felt I could actually make a difference. So I re-enrolled at Loyola University, and within 15 months after leaving the commodities industry, I left Loyola with a master's degree in curriculum instruction, as well as my teaching license. And I began my career as a social studies teacher in the city of Chicago, deep in an urban area, and that is part of who I've become as an educator. It was a very valuable experience for me in terms of helping and understanding students that perhaps over the years have been left behind. And the thing I learned the most from that experience in Chicago is that students and children don't care how much you know, but they know when you care. And I firmly believe in my heart that being an educator is not all about content, curriculum. It's all about caring about students, and it's something that I insist upon with my staff, and it's part of our professional development acumen. I quickly worked my way through the Chicago public school system from student teacher to principal within 10 years. I was a dean of students, I was an assistant principal along the way, I was director of curriculum instruction, and was very fortunate to have an opportunity to grow as a professional educator, but also to help the system in a larger context. Right about the 10-year mark, my wife and I, we have 6 children. We had our last 2, which was a set of twins. We found out when they were 2.5 years old that they were students of special needs. They were both diagnosed with autism. And we decided that since they had an affinity for animals, we had a diagnosis where they were profoundly autistic and probably would never speak. However, we moved to Wisconsin and decided to buy a hobby farm, have horses and have animals and try and nurture the development of our children. As a result of the hard work of numerous people, educators in particular, I'm proud to say that my daughter, who had a label of autism, is now a sophomore at the University of Nebraska. She's an accounting major and she's on the dean's list, so miracles can happen. My son also is at Wichita State University studying sports management, so very fortunate to have that. I come to you also as a parent, but as a parent of special needs children. I've been on the other side of the IEP table. I know what those emotions feel like as a parent of children with special needs, but most importantly, I know what those expectations feel like also, and I believe that experience would help in the current communication that you have within the district here. So we moved to Wisconsin. I continued my professional career, became a superintendent in 3 separate school districts. I started in Kohler, Wisconsin as a superintendent. It was a very diverse district. They had boys and girls. It was a joke. That's pretty much all we had there at that point in time. However, I was able to move on. That was a very, very powerful experience for me because it was a small district. They only had 800 students, 5K through 12. And it meant that I had to wear many hats as the superintendent. I was the superintendent, I was the business manager, I was the curriculum director, I was also the high school principal, I was the athletic director, and since our custodians started at 9 o'clock in the morning, I had to shovel snow in the morning before the school day started. So it was a valuable experience in the sense that I was able to live the life of many of the people that I knew I was going to lead in the future. So I could have a conversation with a lead business official, no different than I can have a conversation with a curriculum director in a district. I do have subsequently a doctorate in curriculum instruction from Loyola University, and I consider myself an educational specialist, a teacher of teachers. That's really the vocation that I feel most comfortable with. Moved on to a school district in Menasha, Wisconsin. The high school, when I first got there, was put on a warning list by the state of Wisconsin from an achievement standpoint. Their high school was in the lowest 10th percentile in the entire state. As a result of some very hard work and structures and programming that hopefully we'll have a chance to discuss today, we were able to turn that school system around in 3 years, and we went from the lowest 10th percentile to the 50th percentile. From my experience at Menasha, I was recruited to my current school district where I've been in the last 6 years, which is the Nicolay High School District. That district had the widest achievement gap between white students and African American students in the entire state of Wisconsin. And I'm proud to tell you today, again, as a result of the hard work of many team members, the achievement gap has closed. Our ACT average score for African Americans has risen by 3 points over the course of the last 4 years. But our white students' ACT scores has gone up also. So we haven't closed achievement gaps like this. We've closed achievement gaps with the notion that a rising tide floats all boats. There are a number of elements to our programming that attributed to our success, and I'd be happy to share those with you. But at this particular point in my career, I feel my current school district is on a trajectory of sustainable success. We have a succession plan in place in the district, and even though last week my Board of Education extended my contract when they realized I was a candidate here, I was appreciative of that. However, I feel my skill sets as a professional are in alignment with the opportunities that we have in this district. In addition, finally, my wife and I, we're empty nesters right now with all of our kids out of our home, and we're looking for a new community to call home, our forever home. Our children are starting to scatter around the Midwest area, and rather than be far away from them in Wisconsin, we'd like to be a little bit closer. And based upon our research, there are a lot of school districts in need of superintendents out there. This is the only superintendency I applied for, and the reason being is I believe professionally I'm a good fit for what you're hoping to do, but also personally my wife and I would like to join you as citizens of the Davenport community. So that's why I'm here today, and I'm appreciative of the opportunity to speak with you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kobylski. I'd like to take a moment to introduce you to this excellent cross-section of our community. So if we could go around the table and just introduce yourself by name and the organization that you represent.
Brad Martell, YMCA.
Bruce Potts, Davenport School Board.
I'm John Dutay with Humility Homes and Services. We provide emergency shelter for families experiencing homelessness.
Nice to meet you.
Tim Chen with Davenport Schools Foundation.
Rusty Boroff with 180.
Ralph Kelly with Punch, People Uniting Neighbors and Churches.
Vera Kelly with the NAACP Metrocon branch here in Davenport.
Dr. Henry Brockington, NAACP Metrocom branch in Davenport, Iowa.
Mike Reyes, I'm State Director for the League of United Latin American Citizens, LULAC.
My name is Tim Garcia. I am here on behalf of LULAC Council 10, Davenport.
I'm Laura Reach. I work for the Figge Art Museum here in town.
I'll be there in a bit.
Amy Groscuff, I'm with the Davenport Public Library.
Robert with the Davenport branch of the NAACP.
Jennifer Best, Iowa State University Extension and Outreach in Scott County.
Hi, I'm Nicole Sistine-Durbin with Family Resources.
Hi, Carrie Ebbett with United Way of the Quad Cities.
I'm Lorelei Fouts, and I'm with Friendly House, which is a neighborhood center or settlement house in the community.
Chad Dyson, Davenport Parks and Recreation.
Mike Miller, Riverbend Food Bank.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Very appreciative.
Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with the questions. We have 12, so if we could take it to about 2 to 3 minutes per question on average. If you feel like you need to take a little more with one, a little less with another, that's fine. But we would like to leave a little bit of open time at the end for follow-up. Okay, question number 1, Dr. Kobylski. Please share your experiences and beliefs about engaging the assets, resources, and capabilities of the community in support of student success.
Let me say first and foremost, from a belief system perspective, it's required of anyone that I work with. You have to have an understanding and a belief that all children can achieve at high levels. And that's a fundamental social justice component of who I am. And I also believe that the old adage that it takes a village to get a student to the level of success that is both academic success, social success, and emotional success. It's not just about being book smart. It's just not about learning content. Our job as a community and our job as a school system is to nurture the growth of students in all three of those domains. Not all learning takes place in the classroom. A lot of learning takes place outside of the classroom, in the homes, in the playgrounds, in the organizations, in the context that you all support. Park systems, very important, as well as supporting organizations, as well as the spiritual development of our children too is very important. So as a school system, I hope that we act as the glue that kind of brings all of us together. I think today's a perfect example of that. However, it's important that we stay in contact with each other. We have an understanding of what the needs are of our children, so that when those needs arise, that we reach out to the right places and to the right people so that we can plug our children into the resources that are going to be of most benefit to them. So our relationship is critical to the success not only of our kids, but to of our community.
Thank you, sir. Our second question, how do you define the term collaboration in the context of school and community partnerships? How would you promote the ethic of collaboration at all district levels?
Collaboration starts with a shared and honest dialogue with each other. It's very important that we develop a relationship. Collaboration only works in a context of individuals that are willing to have a two-way dialogue as opposed to a one-way dialogue. Collaboration is only effective if individuals are open and honest about their feelings and their thoughts and their desires and their aspirations. And I would ask everyone at this table, if we have an opportunity to work together, to just pledge that whatever is on our mind, whatever we know, whatever we want to see, that we're honest with each other moving forward. Collaboration takes place when we work together to solve a problem. There isn't always the single right answer to solving social problems or emotional issues or even academic issues, but it's important that we brainstorm with each other and have an opportunity to share our ideas in a safe environment where we're respectful of each other and we have a social contract such that we can collaborate and communicate, knowing that we have the best interest of our students and the best interest of our community at heart. We have to remember that we're all on the same team and we all have the same goal. And if we keep that in mind and have honest, transparent conversations with each other, we'll be in a great place. One of the things I'm fond of saying to whether I'm having a listening session with parents or I'm meeting with a group of administrators or I'm having a conversation with the Board of Education, it's important that you know what I know. And it's important for me to know what you know. And as long as we can continue to have those conversations and mutually work towards solving goals, the sky's the limit for our children.
Thank you. Next, how would you approach the challenges and opportunities associated with community use of district facilities and equipment during non-school hours?
The biggest challenge in that, quite frankly, is we know what the needs are. It's a function of making sure that we have structures in place so that we can supervise our facilities in a way and supervise the activities that are taking place so that we have productive activities that don't do any harm to our facilities, but at the same time are really meeting the needs of the individuals coming into our system. The district that I'm currently in also serves as the Park and Rec department for our community. Our municipality does not have its own park district. So on any given night in the high school that I currently serve in, we have a host of individuals coming in, whether they're creating artwork for senior citizens or students coming in for classes in a world language that we don't offer. I think schools have to be considered a community hub, and I think we have to open our doors and be creative as we possibly can. I realize the challenges generally tend to be financial when it comes to providing the supervision of an actual building. But I do believe that schools serve as a community hub, and we have to do everything possible to make sure that our facilities are available for the public in a whole host of contexts.
Thank you. Next, please describe your experiences working with faith-based groups to support the work of schools.
So I'm very fortunate. I've been able to work in communities with broad-based belief systems. In my current system, we have a host of churches, a large population of Jewish residents. We have a Jewish community center, for example, that is just a half a mile away from our school. And to give you an example of the partnership that we try to nurture with our community faith-based organizations is we've allowed the Jewish Community Center to utilize our high school for their Maccabi Games, which is the U.S. version of the Olympics for those of the Jewish faith. And we allowed them to come and use our high school as a hub for their entire Olympic game schedule over the summer. We didn't charge them a nickel. We felt it was our obligation as a community to help that community partner because they are obviously a non-for-profit organization. But anything that we can do to help our community and faith-based community members be successful. In return, we do receive a lot of benefits. For example, in our emergency management plans, if we have to have an evacuation of our building for whatever reasons, we have a number of our churches and synagogues that have offered their particular spaces for us to go for reunification and redistribution of students. We have a scheduled meeting coming up on February 18th at the North Shore Synagogue in Fox Point, where I'm also the superintendent. We are going to have a community conversation on personal identity. Our board is in the process of developing school policy on the issue of transgender, and we believe it's very important that we have a community conversation before we develop policy, and we all learn together what it means in terms of personal identity. And we've done that in partnership with the Jewish Community Center as well as the synagogue that we're hosting this particular event. We have churches that offer and come and utilize our space for Sunday school, and everything that we can do to nurture that partnership. We certainly bend over backwards to help our faith-based community.
And a similar faith-based question, have you ever addressed a complaint about the exercise of religious freedom in schools? If yes, how did you address it?
That one's an easy one for us, because when we offer our facilities to user groups, we don't sanction any of those activities. And whatever conversations are taking place, if they're faith-based conversations, if they're conversations, I mean, everything from the Boy Scouts conversations, we don't have an opinion on that. We are free and open in terms of allowing the dialogue within our building, and we don't put forward any restraints for individuals that would like to come in and utilize our space. Having said that, we don't, as a school district, get involved in those discussions and advocate for one position or the other. However, we are advocates for open and honest debate, and anyone who wants to utilize our facility, as long as they're not destructive, as long as they're not hateful, we give them an opportunity to use our facility.
Next, how do you view a school district's role in helping meet the basic human and social service needs of students living in poverty?
Once again, I do believe that the school district is the glue that holds a community together. Relationships are the key for student success, and at school we're fortunate. We typically have students in our building within our reach 6, 7, 8 hours a day, and our teachers, our guidance counselors, our support staff, our administrators, everyone has an opportunity to connect with the student. There's a large body of research out there that suggests that students are far more successful both academically, socially, and emotionally if they have an adult within the school system that serves as their advocate. We work very hard with our staff in all of the schools that I've had the privilege of serving, of making sure they understand their professional responsibility, which is to develop relationships with students. When you develop relationships with students and you get to know them and they get comfortable with an adult in the building that they feel is an advocate, they're far more apt to come to you with a question, with a concern, with an issue, something that happened at home the previous night. And again, that advocate doesn't have to be a teacher. That advocate can be the cashier in the lunch line, and a student just forms a relationship with that person. And the cashier would notice that perhaps that student is just not quite the same that day, and have a conversation and say, what's wrong? And hopefully the student opens up, and it allows us as a school system to gain information and to get that student pointed in the right direction with the right help from a social services perspective as to what that need would be. It could be a school psychologist, it could be a school social worker, it could even be a guidance counselor because a student is stressing over their classes. But the important piece is developing relationships with students so that they feel comfortable having conversations, so that whatever their issues happen to be, we know about them. There's nothing more painful for me to know that there's a child out there suffering in silence. That's why it's important that we connect with kids and develop those relationships.
Thank you, Dr. Kobylski. What are your experiences with making arts funding a priority within a school district, even when funding falls short?
That's where we get help. I'm very fortunate in our current community. We have a very philanthropic base. So about 6 years ago, we felt the need to expand our performing arts centers. Our students receive awards and accolades in a whole host of performing arts, visual arts, and we went out to our community and asked for a $600,000 campaign to help us revamp our theater. New technical specifications for behind the stage, also opportunities for our students to engage in collaborative endeavors with master teachers. So we reached out to our community with a very specific philanthropic campaign. We used our school foundation for that. We had a very clear message as to our ask in the why of what we were trying to accomplish, and we were also very clear and coherent as to what we believe were going to be the educational benefits to our students if we could upgrade our performing arts facility. I'm very pleased to tell you that we exceeded our ask when it comes to the philanthropic piece and the fundraising that we did with our community, and they stepped forward. And to this day, our students benefit from a fine arts facility that is second to none in the area, But again, it wasn't paid for by the taxpayers. It was paid for by a lot of alumni that had passed through our system and had gone through the fine arts program and had benefited from that. But fine arts is critical to the development, I believe, of the education of every child. I'm one of those holistic educators that believes in the classics as well as technology, and we have to incorporate all those pieces. And our community shares that viewpoint. And very pleased that through the hard work of the foundation, we were able to meet that $600,000 goal, exceed that, and have a performing arts facility that is extraordinary.
Well, that's an extraordinary segue into our next question, which is, what has been your experience interacting with school foundations, and what do you perceive to be the role of a school foundation in relation to a school district?
School foundations are critical because they allow school districts to augment programming and services that perhaps would not be available given the constraints of a regular operating budget of a school system. They enhance and enrich the experience that students would have in a school system. And our foundation, I've worked with a number of foundations over the years. I've worked with them in Kohler and Menasha and Cedar. Every district I've been in, we've worked with the foundation. And the whole idea is to take whatever we're doing in a school system and how can we enrich that? How can we make that a little bit better without having to manage that school district budget? And in my experience, school foundations typically are parents and community members that are committed to enhancing the educational lives of students. And whatever that looks like, I find them to be worker bees. They tend to work very hard when it comes to fundraising. But the rubber meets the road in terms of fundraising and getting those funds that are made available for the school systems. Our foundation right now is working on creating a makerspace within our middle school and our elementary schools. That's all being funded by our foundation. We have a build out and an enlargement of our actual art department and our art space for our students. Our foundation is working with us on the fundraising for that. Our foundation also works individually with teachers. If there are classroom projects that perhaps aren't built into our operating budget and a teacher wants to bring in an author or a speaker, they could reach out to our foundation for a mini grant. So foundation's very important in terms of adding that plus to our programming that perhaps would not normally be found in an educational budget. And they're indispensable to some of the more creative and innovative programs, and even some of those last-minute requests that teachers have or opportunities develop that perhaps there isn't funding within the school budget to manage. There's an opportunity within the foundation to sort of fill that gap. We had students that were involved in working with one of our community gardens in the area, and just on their own tried to find busing to get them there, and approached the foundation, advocated for themselves as a student organization, and found funding through the foundation to allow for that. So it's a critical element of our relationship with our community, but certainly advocates for our system that we need to nurture their development and strongly work very closely with our foundation in all aspects of our operation.
Thank you. This is an organizational question. Describe how you would organize a large system such as Davenport Community School District to ensure checks and balances are in place so that no one individual, group, or department is able to have undue power or influence over the functioning of the whole system.
So the core of the work that I accomplish as we start to develop a culture and climate within our organization is based on access and equity. Access for all students so that they have the ability to take grade level curriculum and grade level courses, but also equity in the sense that sometimes school can be a complex game for families, especially families that are hoping or aspiring to have students who would end up being a first-time college student in that family. Our job as a school system is to level the playing field so that everybody has the same advantage when it comes to college applications, for example. Some families, I'm fortunate. I've had 6 kids go to college. I know what a FAFSA is. I know how to work through that process, but there are a lot of families that have no idea how to do that. So we have support systems built into place and that allow for that type of support. The other important pieces is to make sure that we have touch points and we're connected and we're well informed with all the community groups that happen to be out there. I have a multi-ethnic parent association that I meet with every single month at our school. We have our PTO meetings, we have our booster club meetings, and as well as I do superintendent listening sessions in my district where anyone in the community can come, and I take the suit off, put on a sweater, try and make it more hospitable so it's not intimidating to families, where they can come and ask questions. I also go out into the community if there are people that are uncomfortable coming into the school system and just for whatever reasons are uncomfortable, and whether it's a coffee shop or a church basement, or I've been in living rooms of homes because people just want to have a conversation about a topic or an issue in the school district. And I think it's important that we encourage that connectivity with the community. So as a superintendent, I put a lot of effort and attention into getting out into the community and listening, finding out what the needs are, finding out what the hopes and dreams and aspirations are. And through those conversations, knowing what the needs are, making sure that the system is properly balanced so that everyone is being heard as opposed to just the loudest person in the room. And I think we've all seen examples of that. And in our district, with our equity focus, we make sure that everybody has a voice in all the decisions that are made. And we give them that opportunity. But we don't wait for them to come to us. We have to go out to the community and have conversations with them and elicit their feelings and their thoughts and their emotions, and not just wait for someone to show up on our door.
Okay, thank you. Experiencing a little technical difficulty here. Oh, there we go. What are immediate actions you would take to address disproportionate rates of in-school and out-of-school suspensions of students of color in both special and general education? And then a side question, do you have experience with restorative justice practices?
The final piece is my answer to the first question, actually, on that one. It's, from my perspective, it's far more important to be proactive when it comes to student discipline. Our role as educators, our role as parents, our role as community leaders is to teach our youth what it means to be a citizen, what it means to be a human being. Those are learned behaviors, and I believe that as an adult, we have a responsibility to model the behaviors that we expect to see in others, whether those be other adults or the students and children that are under our care. So first and foremost, we have to model behaviors. Secondly, restorative justice is an important component because in many situations, students just don't understand how their actions affect other people. And in a restorative justice model, what makes it so powerful is that it becomes a learning experience for students to understand what their actions have done, why they were inappropriate, but also to understand how their actions had an impact on another person's life and have an interaction with that person that they impacted. That's a powerful experience that allows students to grow as individuals from both a social and an emotional perspective. Punitive measures don't allow for educating, they don't allow for growth, they're just punitive measures. So the restorative justice program really allows students to learn from their mistakes, and we've all made mistakes in our life. And if we learn from those, we become better citizens, we become better individuals. So I firmly believe in a restorative justice model. We implement them at all levels. That helps a little bit with the disproportionality pieces also. The other piece that we have to work on that I think is critical for disproportionality is from a professional perspective as educators. What does it mean to be a culturally responsive educator? It means understanding the students that you have in front of you, understanding the history of marginalization in this country and what that means to various groups and what the impact is, examining your hidden biases as an individual, talking about some of the microaggressions and things that you say to individuals that may mean nothing to you but are extremely harmful to other individuals. So it's understanding their cultures and really coming to grips with what your norms are and your normative behaviors and comparing those and really having an understanding and appreciation of other cultures and other situations that individuals are dealing with, and examining those hidden biases from that culturally responsive perspective. We spend a lot of time in professional development with our faculty, and we focus on making sure that we have what we refer to as asset-based conversations as opposed to deficit-based conversations, and making sure that we understand that whatever we say needs to be said in a light that has a productive outcome, not a negative outcome. It takes a lot of work. It takes a mindset shift on the part of a number of individuals. It takes a lot of self-reflection to understand who you are as a person and how you react to different situations and how you react to different individuals. So the learning isn't just for the students, the learning is also for the staff that's involved in working with the students. And that's a key component of closing achievement gaps, is getting students comfortable with the fact that their teachers now believe in them, their teachers understand them better, and their teachers are advocates whose goal is their success. So there's really two components to student discipline. And then one more piece that I think is very important. A majority of student discipline issues, not all, but a majority of student discipline issues are students that for whatever reason are not engaged in the education in front of them. And part of our responsibility as educators is to find that hook that's going to engage students in a lesson, that's going to attract their interest. And we spend a lot of time with our staff building their pedagogical instructional toolbox, so to speak, so they can find multiple means of engagement, knowing that we're advocating for heterogeneous classrooms with a great deal of diversity, where what might be of interest to me to draw me into a lesson might be completely different than the student who's sitting next to me. So engaging classroom lessons, teachers that understand background in their belief systems and how to have asset-based conversations, and then those restorative justice pieces that are proactive as opposed to reactive, and really help students learn and grow.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. What are immediate actions you would take to increase the number of students of color participating in advanced placement and talented and gifted programs?
Give them an opportunity to be successful. When I first came to Nicolet, I had mentioned that we had the widest achievement gap in the entire state of Wisconsin, and here's why. My first day of school, I walked the hallways of Nicolet High School, and I walked into a class, and the class was 100% African-American class. I walked into the class right next door, and every single student in that class was a white student. What separated those two, they were both algebra classes. One was an algebra class, one was a below grade level math class. The African-American students were placed by ability in a low grade, 8th grade mathematics class, rather than the algebra class with their peers. What I did when I got to Nicolet is I banned all below grade level coursework, because what ended up happening with our African American population is they thought they were going to a great school, they thought they were getting a great education, they had a decent grade point average, but they were getting rejection letters from all the colleges. And what they realized, unfortunately, 4 years down the road, was that their transcript did not reflect a college prep transcript. So I eliminated all below grade level courses by the stroke of a pen. And what we did is, for students, instead of taking 8th grade mathematics, we put them in an algebra class, but we added a math lab after the algebra class. So they got their algebra, but they also had math remediation to help them with any math skills that they needed to be successful in that algebra class. What we also did is we mixed the classes. So now all of a sudden, the students that were in remedial classes were now in regular level classes with their white peers. Now, we just didn't put them in there and say, good luck. We spent a great deal of time and energy and money helping our teachers become successful with having that wide variance of student abilities within their classroom. We implemented a program called Universal Design for Learning. It's been eminently successful across the country. It has served me well in the 2 districts that I've worked for. And as a result of that, it won't surprise any of you to know that when the students were desegregated and they were put in classes together in a heterogeneous fashion, they all raised their test scores. The African American student scores went up, The white student scores went up. And when I showed the analytics and the data to the community, because I will assure you there were doubters, there were people in the community who said, you have those kids in class with our kids, what's going on here? I had to explain, I had to show the data. So we ran the pilot programs that had integrated classes, and I showed the parents that a rising tide floats all boats, and we were seeing success across all levels. As a result of that, our students were taking more advanced classes when they first started high school. They were in algebra, they were in geometry, which allowed them all of a sudden now to start exploring AP opportunities where they would not have had those AP opportunities in the past. Also, we used to have barriers to get into AP courses. You would have to have a B average in your U.S. history class to take AP U.S. history. We eliminated all those barriers, and if a student felt that they would be successful in AP U.S. history, we gave them that opportunity, and we also gave them that support. So it was access, it was opportunity, but it was also building their skill sets early on so that they had the choice of taking an AP course and weren't just, and they were able to be successful because of the rigorous coursework that they had leading up to those AP courses. It was a courageous decision on the part of our district, and I will say my school board to do that. The community was quite vocal about tracking and wanting to keep students separate on separate pathways, but they couldn't argue with the data. The data showed that all student achievement was being accelerated, and because of that data, our school board felt comfortable continuing with that model. And as a result, one of our goals for our school system is that every single graduate of our high school will take at least one AP course before they leave our system. That is one of our goals. We're measuring that right now. It's on our website. We're not all the way there yet, but it's something that we're aspiring to.
Thank you. And this will be the final question before we hopefully have some good time for follow-ups at the end. How would you lead the effort to continuously improve the quality of education as we experience severe budget cuts?
So this is at its heart a financial question, and this is what I've said a couple times today to the various groups that I've met with. Budgeting doesn't start with taking a look at the budget and deciding where to make budget cuts. In order for budgeting to be effective, you have to implement what I refer to as a strategic budget process that has at its very front end program evaluation. It makes no sense to me as a business person or as an educator to say, we're 7% over budget, we're going to eliminate 7% from every budget line we have in our budget to get within our guidelines. Think about the lack of logic of that. If you have a program that is doing exactly what you wanted it to do and you're going to cut that program by 7%, no business would do that. Similarly, if you have a program that you're going to cut 7%, but after a very thorough evaluation, you find out that that program really isn't accomplishing what you wanted to accomplish, cutting 7% isn't enough. Maybe that program needs to go away. When I was speaking with the educators earlier today, I reminded them, I said, we're very good at adding programs, some new ideas that are out there, the seminar that we went to over the summer, or the dreaded book that the superintendent read over the summer and now wants to incorporate into the planning for the school year. We're good at adding things, but we're not very good at discarding programs that don't work anymore. So in the districts that I manage, we go through a process where I ask the following questions. Is this program, is this class, is this mission critical? Is it important to the very core of what we do as an institution? Does this program overlap with any other programs that we have in the system in the sense that we're inefficient because we have some redundancies and maybe we don't need all of these programs doing the same thing? Is this program meeting the needs of many students or just a few students? Is our money being utilized wisely? And the very last question I ask is, what was the goal for this program? What were the intended outcomes? And are we achieving those? If the answer is yes, we move to the budgeting process and we appropriate the appropriate funds into the budget for that program because we know that that program is meeting the needs of our students. If the answer is no, it's not a budget cutting a decision, it's a program cutting decision, and then that leads into a budget. And it's a much more efficient way to manage a budget long term that provides for sustainable fiscal stability. So It allows your budget to be flexible and move based on the needs of your students, but at the same time, it's fiscally responsible to your taxpayers because you're not perpetuating inefficient programs year after year after year, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we'll go into the period of time we have left, about 15 minutes, if we need it, for some follow-ups from our community partners. Just ask for your cooperation in asking clear and concise questions so we can take as many questions as possible.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. You mentioned a couple of times at the beginning that the school is the glue that holds the community together. Unfortunately, the school district is going through these budget concerns. We've had some school closings, recently that are impacting inner city schools and inner city families more pronouncedly than others. We have 2 audits going on.
Right.
We've got this tenuous relationship with the SBRC. There's a lot of mistrust, a lot of hurt feelings, a lot of uncertainty among not just I don't have any kids in the school district, but I grew up in the school district. A lot of people want to see the school district succeed, but there's a lot of not so great things happening right now. And so using the restorative justice model, the language, and there's some of us around here that are familiar with it, it's almost like we need a circle with the school district in that the school district itself has brought hurt and harm. And how do we restore the trust between the school district and the community so that we all can get on the same page? When they closed this school building 2 years ago, we could not get parents and community members to come to meetings because the refrain was, it doesn't matter what we say, they're going to close it anyway, they've made up their mind. And it was true. How do we unwind all of that and get into a better position where we can start growing this district again?
Let me start by saying I firmly believe that actions speak louder than words, and whatever we say may not resonate right now because of that lack of trust that you're speaking of. This community is looking very closely at what is going to happen and what decisions are going to be made, including who is going to be hired as the superintendent. What does that person value? Because as the leader of the organization, that value system is what's going to settle into this organization. So the community is watching very closely as to who that's going to be. The state is watching very closely. I had shared with the board as well as other organizations, from the outside looking in, the state has an extreme sense of urgency when it comes to having this district move on a more productive pathway. And we have to convince this community that as a school system, we also share that sense of urgency. One of the things I learned back in my business career is that you have to have a bias for action and you have to do things. You can't sit around the table and keep talking and talking and talking and coming up with ideas. It's a function of doing things and rolling up your sleeves and doing the hard work and getting things done. The other aspect about that is in rebuilding trust is just having open, honest, and transparent conversations with the community, the good and the bad. An example that I had very recently with my community in Nicolay is we had the misfortune, I had an alumni come forward who was abused by a teacher during his time in our school system. Granted, it was 35 years ago, but it was a horrible situation. I advised the Board of Education to hire an investigator, find out exactly what happened, get a sense of the scope of that particular problem. We found out that there were a host of students that were abused by this particular teacher. What we then did is we issued our report with all of the details, I'm going to call it the icky details of what had happened 35 years ago in full transparency to our community. We wanted to operate in an opposite fashion of how the Archdiocese operated with their abuse issues. We wanted to be open and honest and transparent with our public. So while we had tremendously hurtful and news that was just disgusting to some individuals, news that had people dissatisfied, They were pleased in the sense that we had the courage to put that information out there. So as a school system, we have to do very similar work. We have to set concrete goals for how we want to manage disproportionality. We have to set very concrete goals for how we're going to get students into our AP courses and really promote equity from within. I believe that what gets measured gets done. Analytics is something that's very important to me. So I could tell you, I just had a meeting 2 days ago, and we reviewed the disproportionality in my current district of students that were in the gifted and talented program, and we knew that we had to change the program completely. So we have moved away from measuring students by either a COGAT score or a measure of intelligence, and we expanded the definition of what gifted and talented is. But we're having those conversations with our community. We're explaining why we're doing these things, but more importantly, we're giving the community an opportunity to voice either their concerns or their support for what we're doing. Our conversation in a couple weeks on personal identity and transgender policy, I'm sure we're going to have varying opinions on that, but the point is we have to give people an opportunity to be heard, and that has to be a two-way street. It's difficult, it's courageous, but that's the only way that people start building trust. Again, like I said, what I know, you know, and that's the way I operate as a superintendent. And if I start acting and taking actions on things that our community believes in, things that our community wants to see, those actions I hope will start rebuilding that confidence in the direction of the district, as well as buying into the vision of a preferred future where we have an equitable learning environment and students are far more better served than they are today. Okay. Thank you.
In your response to the question about poverty being a barrier to education, you talked about the importance of relationships and that being how you find out about the issue. Could you talk a little bit more about how to address the issues once you find out about it?
Once we find out that there are issues of poverty,
yeah.
It's complex because poverty affects students in a whole host of ways. It affects their home life. It affects their ability to have well-rounded meals. It affects their ability to have a good night's sleep. It affects their ability to have a place to study if they need to. What needs to happen is conversations have to take place one-on-one, individuals. No student is the same. I don't believe in teaching to the middle, and I believe that we have to offer personalized services to our students. So knowing that, it's critical that we connect an adult with the student and find out exactly what's going on. Is it, I don't have a coat and it's too cold out and that's why I'm not getting on the bus to go to school? Well, we're going to get you a coat and we're going to get you to school. Or I'm hungry, whatever the case, we're going to find a way to get you food, but we don't know what we don't know. So we have to connect with students and we have to develop those relationships so that we understand what's happening in their lives. We have solutions to all of these problems. We have resources that we can turn to help solve many of those issues of poverty. We have to know specifically what the situation is so we can pinpoint and target the correct solutions and the correct supports that will help students overcome those issues of poverty that are in some way inhibiting their development at the school level. But it's time consuming. It's one-on-one conversations and relationships. Once those relationships take place, I can assure you a community like this will come together and find the resources it needs to solve the problem. But we have to know what the problem is first. Yes, ma'am.
Just to follow up on that, do you have experiences in your district with MOUs with outside agency organizations that are working inside the school alongside to address those issues, with the idea being that perhaps the school doesn't have the expertise or the resources to do that, but our community does somewhere? Is that anything that you have experience with?
Yes, but we don't normally have to have a formal memorandum of understanding. We have very good relationships with our county agencies and supporting agencies, as well as our educational agencies. And in all of our schools, we have school psychologists, we have our social workers who have a network of associates that they can connect with on a moment's notice. We're fortunate that it doesn't have to be that formalized. It's really a professional learning community in that particular group, and the outreach is quite extensive. And we have every opportunity at our fingertips to pick up the phone and call someone, and they could either be in our building in a moment's notice, or we could have students on their way in a moment's notice, or we can facilitate family meetings. We have a whole host of opportunities and agencies that are geared. You know, we're in the Milwaukee metropolitan area, so you can imagine there are a whole host of agencies that are out there that are geared towards the same goal that we have as an educational institution, is to make sure that we're meeting not only our academic responsibilities, but our social and emotional opportunities. They're faith-based organizations that we talked about. We all know who we are. We all work together. And once we've identified where the need is, it's all hands on deck, and we all jump on that. Yes, sir.
It seems to me you've done your research, and you can probably tell through all the questions that we have many challenges here.
Yes.
So I'd like to flip it around and ask you what you believe is the single biggest strength of the Davenport Community School District.
Actually, I thought I knew the answer to that, but it was affirmed today as I had my conversations throughout the morning, throughout the afternoon. Appreciate the marathon. It's been quite the run here today. But
You ain't done yet.
Well aware of that. I've met with elected officials. I've met with teachers. I've met with administrators. I've met with students. I've met with parents. Everyone in the Davenport area wants this school system to be successful. That's a common bond that we all have, and we need to take advantage of that common bond. And we take advantage of that common bond by acknowledging that is what we're trying to accomplish. My goal is the same goal that the foundation has. My goal is the same goal of any organization. We've worked very closely with the NAACP over the years in terms of desegregating and up-leveling our students. Their goal is the success of our school system, same as ours. And when we're all on the same team and we're all pulling on the rope in the same direction, we can accomplish what we need to accomplish and get through what I'm going to call the perfect storm right now here in the Davenport school system. And I firmly believe everyone is rooting for this school system to get through this, and everyone wants to help. We may not all share the same ideas as to what that help looks like and what needs to be done, but I can assure you that everyone that I have spoken with today wants to see this district successful, wants to see the students become successful as they transition into their adult life. And everyone in this community that I've spoken with today has said, how can I help? That's a wonderful asset to have as a community. And with that, we can build upon that and we can weather this perfect storm. To me, that's the single greatest asset that you have. Thank you. Okay.
We have time for one more if we have it. Rusty?
Hypothetical situation, but not really hypothetical. Say you get hired at this job and the school board gives you a 5-year plan, which includes closing down schools, cutting staff, etc. At the end of the day, even though it's a board's decision, you're the man that has to carry that plan out. And many of those schools could be in our inner cities, our high poverty schools. How do we ensure that we don't just give up on half a generation of students because we've closed down those schools that are in their neighborhoods and their safety zones? How do we ensure, if this plan moves forward, that we just don't wipe away that half a generation of students?
Whatever the board decides to do, obviously the superintendent's responsibility is to also educate and help inform the board. I haven't had the opportunity to look in depth on this particular issue and what the why is to the decisions that are being made. But I think my consummate responsibility and the responsibility of any superintendent is to provide a recommendation and a rationale to the school board. I think that's something that we need to do, and I have no problem revisiting some issues that perhaps I can shed a little bit more light that perhaps wasn't taken into consideration the first time around. It doesn't mean a decision is going to be reversed. However, whatever decision is made, we have to make sure that we reach out to families that are affected by these types of decisions, and there are many decisions like this that affect families. We have to explain why, in our opinion, over the long term, this is going to benefit those families. And this is what we're going to do in terms of consummate action steps that make sure that families understand that this is to their benefit in terms of the actions that are being taken. It can't be a general statement that kids will just be better off. That's not an acceptable thing to say. We have to say, this is why they will be better off, and delineate that. People are rational if you give them the opportunity to hear the why, and you're rational in your response. So if that's a decision that's made, we have to be rational. We have to explain why, but we also have to give them an opportunity to explain their position so that they have an opportunity to have their voice heard. But also at the same time, this isn't a me issue. This isn't an I issue. These issues that we're talking about here are we issues. And I would say it's incumbent upon the community to say whatever they think are some viable solutions, to share those solutions also. It's one thing to come and say, I disagree. It's another thing to come to a meeting and say, I disagree. Have you ever thought about this? So I would challenge the community to say, if you have any issues with decisions that are about to be made, no problem with you being heard, and I would encourage you being heard. But at the same time, let's be part of the solution, because we have some significant challenges here that we have to face in terms of very low capacity in some of our buildings. And is there a creative solution out there that someone hasn't found yet? Maybe. We should have an opportunity to hear that. But let's solve the problem together as opposed to just being a school district problem.
Okay, that will conclude the session. On behalf of the group, I'd like to thank you, Dr. Kobylski, for your thoughtful and considered responses. I hope you are duly impressed with the questions. They were from this group.
Very much so. Thank you.
And just know that we have, as you have said, a community that cares deeply about kids and about our school district, and the people around this table and the people that they represent and their organizations carry that work out every day. So on behalf of the group, we thank you and good luck.
And if I could just add, not only was I impressed with your questions, but I was comforted by your questions. And that's an important piece for you to hear. So hopefully I get a chance to join you in your learning community, and I wish you the best of luck. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. Oh, Michael.